Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode 3, in which we are discussing the 10 ways that God actually is consistently and constantly involved in our life. Now, one of the ways, the third thing is growth. We discussed, first of all, God is involved in the physical world, He's recreating it, but also the spiritual, that He gave us the Torah, and He constantly helps us and He guides us. Now, this is very, very important to understand. And that is as follows. Everything we go through in life is part of our growth. A human being is not a static person. And therefore, many times in life, I was discussing this I have a class of young children. They're all they're very bright. And I said, okay, let's discuss Hashgacha Pratis, how God is constantly involved. And they said this idea that He's here to help us grow. So in the beginning, one of the kids said, God does good things and He does bad things which are good. And that's a very profound line, meaning the good things that work out for us, things that we like, we all enjoy it. But then there is the bad which is good. In other words, what is the bad which is good? This is the things that don't feel so good. In fact, the worst things, if I look at my life, the biggest blessings I had by an infinite measure are the worst things that ever happened to me. Why? Because sometimes in life we have to be shaken out almost traumatically of the way we perceive life. We all have a worldview. Our brain basically thinks it knows what's going on, but it really doesn't. And really we're in an infinite universe, a universe of infinite growth. Now, in order to get to the stage of infinite growth, you have to let go. The enemy of learning is I know. The moment you think you know, just like if a person is full, they can't eat. If a person is hungry, they can ingest. So the person who's full, that they think they know, they can't know. But the person that knows that they can never know, because God is infinite and you cannot know infinity, you can only, imagine on earth. Okay, let's say you have to get to a city. You're there. Now imagine you're in the ocean. And your goal is just to go in the ocean. You're never there. You're like in it, but you've never really arrived. So too, in the world of growth, you've never arrived. You're always growing. A tree is always growing. And in fact, if it stops growing, it starts to die. So you and I are growing all the time. And a lot of our most traumatic growth, in fact, is usually the thing that matters most. The Army, of course, there's unfortunately a lot of PTSD, has done studies. And very, very interesting. If you asked soldiers that have PTSD, which is very, very terrible to have. I've had, anxiety before. It's not fun. After 5 years, you say to them, okay, if I could take away your anxiety, but also take away the growth that came from it, would you do it? And the answer is no. In other words, a human being always, always, always needs to have a motivating factor. And this motivating factor is something that is going to be driving them. And so a very good example for this, the Rebbe gave from the space shuttle. Now, we all know there are 3 rockets, right? A big one. Now, why do we need 3 rockets? Because there's a lot of gravity. So rocket number 1 takes you out of the major gravitational force. Rocket number 2 takes you a little higher. Rocket number 3 puts you into outer space. So first, we may go through something very traumatic, and it shakes up the whole way we see the world. But the reason for that is that we have to be able to reprogram ourselves, see the world grow, basically, see it in a more real way. We have to, like the Alter Rebbe says, the main way we discover God is not through what others tell us, and even the books, even the Torah, but through what we self-discover. We really think about God. We think about this, and it's very meaningful, and it's very real. So you get the second and the third rocket. But when you're in outer space, something interesting happens, and that is, how do you go forward in outer space? Because there's nothing to push against. So they basically made an air bubble, if I'm not mistaken. They pushed against themselves. Eventually, you reach a point that you can consistently grow. You don't need these outside factors to push you out of your comfort zone and into constant growth. It's happening all the time. So again, the third way that God is constantly involved, and is very hidden this way, is in everything we go through. Everything you go through is there to help you grow. And sometimes growth is actually traumatic because it's leaving one paradigm. In fact, this is the first thing God told the spiritual seeker, Abraham. He said, leave everything you know, leave your past, and be ready to go into infinite growth. Always be ready to hear the voice of God. Always be ready to grow. Always be ready to shift. Thank you for watching episode 3. And we're going to now go to episode 4, which is the miracle of the soul.